What happens when you think doing something with your money is more important than what your partner thinks? Should you combine your money if you disagree? Stay tuned, we're going to talk about it.
So I'm John.
And I'm Jeff. Welcome to Relational Media. In this video, we're going to talk about how your differences in perception can cause problems in your relationship, and specifically around money.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about what we can do to help.
Okay, cool.
Okay, good.
So have you ever had a discussion, a disagreement, some intense fellowship with your partner where you thought you were right and they thought they were right, and there wasn't really any room in the middle for both of you to be right?
I'm sure that's never happened. Yeah, that's happened many times.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And that's sort of what we're talking about today. Because how we perceive the world has an impact on arguments just like this.
Right.
So if I perceive the world, specifically my world, as including the right information, say, about money, and my partner thinks that they're right about the perception of money in this instance, then there's an immediate conflict.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we've said this before, but, and our perceptions of this change every day, right?
Yeah.
How I feel about what we have in our savings account, one day maybe it's enough, and the next day, for whatever reason, I don't think it's enough.
Yes.
And so even our perceptions are moving targets.
Subjective.
Yeah,
for sure. And I think it's really important that we not confuse our perception with reality. There's a really interesting book by a guy named Donald Hoffman, which is called The Case Against Reality, that tries to make this point. Although his book isn't about money.
Okay.
We're just taking this as a example from his work. I think the idea, one of the main ideas he gives in this book, is the idea that when you look at something, you might be perceiving it in a helpful way, but not in its true way.
Yeah. I was thinking about this. Every year our family does a Christmas card that we base off of a photo that we take. And my wife gets on the computer and she blows up the picture and she tries to color correct it and get it ready for printing on these color Christmas cards. And it's inevitable that every year it comes back slightly different. And what we found out is that the way that our monitor, the way that our computer screen presents that reality to us is not the same way that the printer receives it. So we think we've got it the way we want it, and when it comes back printed, the printer had a different reality.
Their screen was different than your screen.
They got the exact same information displayed differently.
Excellent. That's a good example, I think. So one of the arguments that we're taking from this book is that perception is not a window on objective reality. It's something else, something helpful, but not objective reality. And so one of the things we want to do is distinguish between, in a metaphoric way, distinguish between the map and the terrain.
Okay.
All right? The map is the thing we build that we hope describes the terrain. If you've ever gone onto your phone or you've gone onto your car's navigation system,
right,
you will inevitably find some part of that map eventually not being the accurate truth of the terrain you're driving on.
Right.
So in the very same way, we have a map that we build of the entire world. We perceive it a particular way, and we build that map, and then we work off the map. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we make adjustments when we find out, but
yes,
but it's still a map.
Right. So here's the dilemma. When my map is different from my partner's map, we both believe that we're correct.
Right.
That our map is the most accurate map. If we're talking about money, the the most accurate about whatever money argument we're having.
Correct.
And it's very, very hard to convince them that their map is inaccurate and ours is most accurate.
Even though both maps likely have elements that are true
Yes.
and elements that are somewhat less than accurate.
Correct. So, one of the things we need to be able to do in terms of helping solve dilemmas around combining money is recognize that our perceptions are not exactly objective,
Right.
and that our partner's perceptions are also not exactly objective.
I have experienced, and I'm probably the only one,
Okay.
who have found myself in arguments just like this to start becoming more protective of my map than what I want
Yes.
or what we're actually talking about.
Right.
Because I find that if I'm being challenged in my perspective of the issue, I'm suddenly more defensive about my perspective.
You want to hold on to your map very tightly.
Don't
Served
challenge.
you well.
Yeah, don't challenge my worldview. Don't tell me that it's not red. Don't tell me it's purple. I know it's red.
Yes.
And if I'm wrong here, who knows what else I might be wrong
That's
about.
right. You might have to throw that whole map out if it's not correct.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's a lot at stake. I mean, people really have a lot of anxiety when their map is challenged. But I think it's really important to hold your map lightly, not to be too focused on it being the perfect representation of the truth. So we're talking about perception today, and perception is one of the components of meaning making.
Right.
So the difference between your meaning and your partner's meaning can be the source of many arguments. I think that's what we're saying, right?
Right.
So this is what we want to do to try to help with that, right? Because the differences create problems, and we want to do something to try and solve that kind of a problem, right? So the first idea we have is get to know what money means to you, what it means to you, right? What lessons have you learned over your life about money? And how do you apply them in your relationship? I mean, I'm giving you like just a couple questions on that.
Right.
But really be open to creating a ton of questions about how money was introduced to you over the course of your life, and what lessons or what meanings, what perceptions did you have about that money, and then figure out how did you apply that to your relationship.
Yeah, it's one of the core things that Jeff and I recommend is that you are curious about how your partner got to the place they are now in their understanding and meaning of money.
Yeah.
And so it may not sound like the most romantic date ever, but while you're at the table searching for things to talk about, these topics such as, hey, what was it like growing up? Did your parents do this or do this? And how did you perceive these financial things? Those are really great ways to talk about maybe some of the things that you're struggling with in your relationship, and taking kind of the focus off of that hot center, and maybe jointly kind of discover how those perceptions are different, how that map got drawn originally, and who all was involved in sketching that out.
Yes. Good. Next idea. Try the very best you can to avoid thinking about money and talking about money in absolutes, in all or nothings, right? So if you say something like, you never pay the bills, or you always spend too much money, it's the all or nothing language that can really create problems in a relationship.
Right.
So try to understand why you do what you do. And have the conversation with your partner about why you're doing what you do. In other words, go deeper.
Sure.
Here. Yeah.
And don't let fear overpower you in these moments where you feel that their map is different.
Yeah.
We've talked about this. That gets into a lot of different emotions suddenly blossoming and kind of overrunning the conversation.
Yeah. All right. Third point. You are no doubt going to have some kind of difference around money. This is a very common thing. And one of the most important things we consistently suggest is to try to employ some empathy around your difference.
Yes.
Empathy is simply the idea that you would take a curious and kind approach to trying to explore what the other one's going through so you can understand what it is that they're going through. So in this instance, using our map analogy, you're not only wanting to understand your own map, but you want to understand their map because they constructed their map for a reason, and there's historical sort of influences all over that map. You have to know how they came to the conclusions that they came to.
It takes a lot of humility. Can we just say it that way?
Yes, it does.
Empathy takes humility to say, my map isn't right.
Yes.
And that there were some people who were part of making my map that didn't understand everything either. And since I love this person, I'm going to be humble about the fact that we need to work this out together and find our shared ground.
Yes, I love that idea. I also think another way of thinking about this is that just because you have different maps doesn't mean one's right and one's wrong. Let go of the idea that one has to be right and one has to be wrong. Those are binary problems, right? False dichotomies.
And it gets back to the idea that we both bring strengths into the relationship. Your map may have some idea that I was totally unaware of that benefits me. But if all I'm afraid of is that my map is incorrect and therefore I have no voice in this relationship, or I have no agency in how we're going to do things going forward, I can't benefit from what you bring to the table.
That's right.
And I have to be comfortable enough that, I am a real person with real ideas, and, I survived before we met in this relationship and did okay. Then there are parts of my map that are going to be valuable to the relationship later as well.
You're both contributing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, the last idea here is to organize your money around your common values. I don't know how many times we've said it. We're going to say it 1,000 more times in our videos. It's really, really important to let your values direct all of your resources, including money, because your values are the things that are more important than money, right?
Right.
So don't let the tail wag the dog. Let this be a situation where your values are helping you point in the direction you both want to go in and create a common or shared experience. The point we're really trying to make is be sure that you understand the experience of your partner when you're looking to combine your money together. You need to understand what they've been through and what they're going through, how they think and feel. And you also need to understand how you think about this. If you have that understanding, then there's a good chance you're going to be able to solve the problems that come with combining your money.
Yes.
If you like our videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps us to get the content to you just like this.
And if you're interested, we offer a class. It's called More Than a Budget. You can find out more about that at relational-media.com. In that class, Jeff and I are going to take a deep dive into how couples can get on the same page financially. We give some great exercises for how to discover if the way you use your money is in alignment with the things that are most important to you, and sets up a framework for how to set out the things that are your shared core values. So give that a look, and as we always say, hey, stay curious.
John, you want to finish chewing your candy?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Producer is giving a note.